This right here is Beckett Seneca, who this past draft would be shockingly drafted 3rd overall by the Ducks.
What a reaction that is. Similar to mine. 3, that's a little bit of a shocker for me, but to think that where he went from the mid to late 20s to go into that 10 range and above here at number 3. Wow, it's a bit of a shocker.
Look at the shock and disbelief in my man's face. Because here's the thing, Beckett was a consensus mid-first round pick. There were scouting agencies who had him at the end of the first, if not a second round pick. So it begs the question, why in the hell would the Ducks pass on a guy like Demidov?
Вот этот гол. А наоборот, приятное для Амира событие. Он... Нет, но это невозможно.
Caden Lindstrom.
Backhand! Lindstrom scores!
Or perhaps T. Jaginla?
Gabriel shoots, but Jaginla skates in. Solo backhand! He'll score!
Or at the very least, why the hell would the Ducks not trade down? As there were many reports of teams trying to trade up to Columbus's pick at number 4, where they could snipe Demidov ahead of Montreal, but they didn't. And this right here is what makes the world of scouting so fascinating. Every single team in the NHL has a completely unique draft list. Every single team has a different top 10, if not a top 5 list. Why, you ask? There are many factors to why teams draft a player that goes far beyond how many points they would put up in their draft year. For some players, and I kid you not, if they have a bad game and don't hug their mom after, they will get a red flag. One scout may watch 10 of your games where that prospect plays horribly, but maybe they had the flu. Another scout may watch 10 games where they score 15 goals. And for the case of Beckett Seneca, the Ducks had a hunch, because heading into the 22-23 season, Beckett was listed at 5'10", and going into this draft, he was listed at 6'3". So in a little over a year, Beckett had grown 5 inches. For many players, this would be a massive hurdle. Growing this much and getting used to your body is like watching a baby giraffe trying to walk for the first time. So where some teams saw an awkward player, the Ducks saw a kid with massive potential hidden behind his lanky frame.
Comes Torrance, he crosses, leaves for Seneca, lots of room, he scores! Danford falls, gets the puck to Seneca, protects, Morelli scores! Out by Oster, back the other way, Seneca, break, Beckett, Seneca scores!
Now, I wish the best for Beckett, alongside of all the players in this video, but there's a massive difference between a top 3 pick and a top 10 pick, and that gap gets substantially bigger when you go into the mid to late first round, and astronomically bigger when you go into the second round, because back in 2020, Joki Nevalainen of Dobber Prospects would conduct an extensive study on prospect probabilities. More specifically, the odds that certain picks go on to play a long career in the NHL, where he would highlight how nearly 100% of top 3 players would go on to play over 100 games in the NHL, which sounds about right. However, when you go to the 10 to 20 range, that number goes from nearly 100% to dropping to 70, if not below 60%. Therefore, there is a massive difference between picking in the top 3 versus a top 10 pick. And we're just talking prospects who play over 100 games. And we're not talking about prospects who turn into stars. But here's the thing, every single NHL team has a different list when it comes to the draft, which is why every once in a while, we see a player get shockingly drafted off the board. Back in 2016, the Arizona Coyotes would hire the youngest GM in NHL history, John Chayka, and this bold move was inspired by Chayka's progressive outlook on the NHL, his ability to use analytics to back up his moves. And in the 2018 NHL draft, the Coyotes would end up with the 5th overall pick, where John Chayka was looking to make a home run. And around this time, there was a severe shortage for top 6 centers. And considering this draft was led by defensemen and wingers, John Chayka would need to go the extra mile to scout that projected number 1 center, where Chayka would come to a realization. Yes, Barrett Hayton wasn't producing like a top 5 pick, but he was also a part of a wagon of a Sault Ste. Marie team, which meant that Barrett was pushed down the lineup and forced into a more limited role. Therefore, Chayka would come up with the hypothesis, if Hayton had more ice time, he would surely be a star. And to be fair, it was a good point. However, Chayka's obsession with Hayton would hit another level, as he would reportedly conduct conduct illegal fitness testing, which is honestly so stupid it doesn't even make sense, as the NHL runs combines every year. But I guess that wasn't enough, and Chayka wanted that extra confirmation. But as a result, this would be leaked to the NHL, and as a penalty, Arizona would lose the 11th overall pick in 2021, where he would miss out on Cole Sillinger, Coronado, Wyatt Johnston would be selected shortly after, and a second round pick in 2020. But okay, maybe it was all worth it. No, it was not. As not only did Arizona pass on Evan Bouchard, Noah Dobson, Quinn Hughes, the 2023 Norris winner, but Hayton has developed into a third line scorer. Not to mention that John Chayka would be fired, and they would lose a near top 10 pick in the process. But here's the thing, it wasn't just Arizona who went off the board. No, Montreal this draft, more specifically Marc Bergevin, would also make one of the most questionable decisions I have ever seen, as they, like Arizona, were desperately trying to fill their number one center role. Because at this point, they did not make the Max Pacioretty trade, where they would acquire future captain and number one center Nick Suzuki. Their center prospect pool was bone dry, and they were pushing all their chips into the table. Yet, Marc Bergevin would show his hand to the public, as I don't know if it was the Burger Van himself, or perhaps someone else leaked it, but nearing the end of the 2017-2018 season, it would come out that Bergevin was very keen on Jesperi Kotkaniemi. But here's the thing, Montreal was at the bottom of the standings, so if they were to draft him, they would have to go about, 10, even 15 spots off the board. So many fans and analysts were now expecting him to trade down, as we have seen teams in the past, multiple first round picks, if not a great player, to go from the mid first round to number 3, but considering that everyone knew his hand, this trade wasn't possible, because around the time it came out that Bergevin was so high on Kotkaniemi, I would see his rankings go from a mid first round to top 5 pick. So if he wanted to draft him, he would have to stay at number 3, as the Burger Van making it public that he was going to take Jesperi was literally Kim Kardashian wearing reflective sunglasses at a poker tournament. Therefore, he would stay at 3 and select his guy, which would also give us one of the most iconic reactions in draft history. Honestly, this lady and Beckett, either one works, but you know what? Yes, Jesperi needed some more development, but he had the upside of a premier two-way center, so give him another year. Let the kid grow into his body. Okay, so he's being rushed into play. Gotcha. It's one thing I have never understood, is why teams prioritize bringing in an 18-year-old prospect, or at the very least, could use an extra year or two of development to launch themselves into the NHL. But you know what? I know why. New prospects sell tickets. It's the business side of the argument, as it adds that extra jolt into a fan base. In his first season, he would actually perform well, as he would show flashes of a 25-goal scorer with a solid defensive game. However, he would see regression with 8 points in 36 games. And to add another wrinkle to this story, Jesperi's grandpa had just flown down from Montreal to watch his grandson play for the first time in the NHL. That same week, Jesperi would be sent down to the minors. Sorry, Grandpa. Then the pandemic would happen. Montreal would make it to the Cup Finals, but not because of Jesperi, where we would see the incident. The year prior, it was obvious that Marc Bergevin did not see Jesperi as their number one center. And well, the Burger Man was in luck. Leading up to the 2019 offseason, the Hurricanes were struggling to come up with a contract for Sebastian Aho, who had just come off a 30-goal, 83-point season. And around this time, the Hurricanes weren't known for giving out those massive deals. Therefore, Marc Bergevin would swoop in, where he would sign Aho to a 5-year, $42 million deal. Not only that, over $20 million of that contract was to be paid out in the first year, as Carolina was not that rich, big market team, and they would have to pull some strings to come up with that extra $20 million. But because Aho was a restricted free agent, it meant that the Canes had the option to match that offer and keep him, or let Montreal take him, where they would get a bunch of first round picks and compensation. But Carolina would quickly match his offer, because whenever we see a team try to steal a player like this, it will create hatred towards the other GM, as we rarely see teams submit offer sheets like this. So now in the 2021 offseason, Montreal was having troubles to sign Kotkaniemi, and I kid you not, the Canes would offer sheet Jesperi to a 1-year, $6.1 million deal, where Montreal would decide to not match. They would get a first round pick and compensation, they would flip it for Christian Dvorak, and here's the kicker. This season, the Canadiens would make it to the Stanley Cup Final, one of the craziest underdog runs we have ever seen. So you would think that Montreal, led by Bergevin, was heading into the right direction, but You would be wrong, because right after this offer sheet fiasco, Bergevin would be fired. Now, was Jesperi being taken off the board the sole reason? Of course not, but without a doubt, him passing on multiple franchise players and a Norris winner, leading to an offer sheet saga ending with a third-line center, played a big role in this chaos. Meaning, 2 GMs from the top 5 picks in the 2018 NHL draft would both be fired, with the big variable being that they went off the board. If we take a look back at NHL draft history, from the first draft in 1963 up until 2018, so a 55-year time frame, there was a grand total of 5 German players selected in the first round. However, from those 55 years of history, only 2 players would be drafted directly out of Germany, more specifically the DEL, which is the top-ranked professional league in Germany. Because what's crazy is the fact if we take a look at a country beside Germany, the Czech Republic, in that exact same time frame, they would have 48 players drafted in the first round. Czechia is 8 times smaller, but they would have nearly 10 times the amount of first round picks. Which begs the question, why? Well, for one, the USSR influence played a factor here, but so did the dominance of one of the best players in NHL history, Jaromir Jagr.
Here in a row, and here's Jagr with the puck. Jagr, nice move around Brent Sutter to the backhand. Lets it go, he scores!
Because when he was discovered and drafted, we would see an exponential increase in the amount of players coming to the NHL from the Czech Republic. Because after 1990, 43 of the 48 first-round picks were discovered after Jagr would shock the hockey world. As you could say that Jagr would help legitimize hockey in the Czech Republic. Or maybe my man would cause a paradigm shift. Similar to how teams devalued Cale Makar for playing in the AJHL, or Elias Pettersson and Allsvenskan. If NHL teams don't know how to properly judge talent, some prospects will slip through the hands of scouts, or perhaps never even get a real shot. So heading into the 2019 NHL draft, when Steve Yzerman would step up to the podium for the first time as Red Wings GM, my man would shock the hockey world.
Moritz Seider.
You can hear the reaction here in this arena.
As he would draft Moritz Seider with the 6th overall pick, a player who was ranked as a mid to late first round pick by many scouts. And this selection would literally make fans, Detroit fans, want Steve Yzerman fired. You could have selected Broberg, the next Victor Hedman, Trevor Zegras, Vasily Podkolzin. Yes, Seider was playing in the DEL as a teenager, but he would put up, okay, subpar numbers. Steve Yzerman has lost his mind. In Seider's Draft Plus 1 season, he would impress. With 22 points in 49 AHL games, he wasn't projecting as that #1 Norris quality defenseman, but he was laying the body, putting up points, showing a defensive game. However, all of this would change in the 2021 season. Due to the pandemic, Seider would go back to Europe and sign with Rogel of the SHL, where we would see his true potential. Not only did he run his team's blue line as a teenager, putting up phenomenal numbers,
Som skickar den på sidan och böter dem bröst mot bröst.
Seider i mål!
but he would win SHL Defenseman of the Year. This season would launch Seider into his rookie year like a bullet, as he would start to dominate the NHL as a rookie, putting up 50 points.
Seider scores! Red Wings in overtime.
Mo Seider, short-handed. The backhand, he scores!
Pastrnak just to keep going, and now to get away. Pastrnak was skating, doing his best.
Showing an elite shutdown game, throwing big hits.
Oh, and Seider saw it coming from Kreider, and he said, take this.
He is so strong.
Where he would take home the Calder. Remember how I ranted on about how there was only 5 players drafted from Germany in the first round, but only 2 of those players played in Germany? The arrival of Seider would cause a paradigm shift in the NHL, as we went from seeing a player drafted while playing in Germany once in every 25 years, to seeing 3 drafted within 2 years, as players like Tim Stützle and Lukas Reichel were in the process of coming to the States to play in the NCAA for their draft year. However, after Seider would help legitimize the DEL, they would opt to stay in Germany. There were years where 0 players were drafted from Germany. And as for Seider, he went from being seen as a horrible, off-the-board pick. A pick so bad, the fans wanted Yzerman fired in the first year in Detroit, to him changing the way teams view European prospects. And today, Seider, in my opinion, is one of the best building block defensemen in the NHL. So to summarize, 2 of the GMs in this video from the same draft were fired. indirectly due to their off-the-board pick. Steve Yzerman, the next draft, would also go off the board, where his fans wanted him fired. So, can you name a player that was selected off the board? Comment down below. I'm recovering from strep throat, sorry for the lack of videos. So I think that deserves a like, me grinding it out with no voice. And as always, thanks for watching.